The Burning of Paradise. The colony world of Meridian's Rest had earned its name honestly. After 2 centuries of humanity pushing outward into the cosmos, this planet represented everything they had dreamed of finding. 3 continents covered in forests that swayed under gentle winds, oceans so clear you could see 30 meters down to reefs teeming with native life that somehow resembled Earth's own marine creatures. 2 moons that painted the night sky in silver and gold. Director James Rivera stood on the observation deck of the Central Administration, building and watched the sunrise paint the eastern mountains in shades of amber and rose. He had been here since the colony's founding 18 years ago, had watched it grow from a few prefabricated shelters to a thriving community of 1.8 million souls. The capital city of New Dawn stretched out below him, a testament to human ambition and cooperation. The colonists came from everywhere. Scientists from Luna studying the planet's unique ecosystem, farmers from the agricultural stations of Ganymede, who recognized perfect soil when they saw it, artists from Mars who found inspiration in alien landscapes, teachers, doctors, engineers, dreamers, all building something new under foreign stars. They had created universities and hospitals, museums and gardens. Children attended schools where they learned both Earth history and practical skills for frontier life. Meridian's Rest had no military presence. The colony charter specifically prohibited weapons beyond basic security forces, equipped to handle wildlife and the occasional dispute. Humanity had learned from Earth's bloody history. The outer colonies were meant to be different, peaceful, focused on growth and discovery rather than conquest and defense. The warning came at dawn on the 18th anniversary of the colony's founding. Long-range sensors detected ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Dozens of vessels bearing the insignia of the Dominion Coalition, a political alliance of 7 alien species that claimed authority over this region of space. Rivera tried to establish communication immediately. The response came from High Chancellor Vex of the Corthian species, a reptilian race known for their rigid adherence to bureaucratic protocol. His image appeared on the main screen, scaled features showing no emotion, vertical pupils narrowed in what might have been contempt. The transmission was brief and cold. Meridian's Rest existed in violation of territorial claims established 400 years ago by the Dominion. Humans were classified as newcomers to the galactic community, and their expansion into Dominion space was unauthorized. The colony had 12 hours to begin evacuation procedures. Any humans remaining after that deadline would be considered hostile occupants and dealt with accordingly. Rivera immediately contacted Earth through quantum communication channels. The response was bureaucratic confusion. Different government departments argued over jurisdiction. The colonial administration claimed this was a diplomatic matter. The United Earth Council wanted to negotiate. The Space Development Authority insisted the original surveys showed no prior claims to the system. While Earth debated, Rivera tried reasoning with the Dominion fleet. He explained that 1.8 million people could not evacuate in 12 hours. The colony had transport ships for emergencies, but they could carry maybe 50,000 at most. He begged for more time, offered to negotiate territorial arrangements, suggested shared custody of the system. High Chancellor Vex listened to every plea with the same expressionless features. His response never varied. The Dominion had given its terms. Compliance was not optional. The deadline would not be extended. Rivera spent those 12 hours organizing what evacuation he could. Priority went to children and their immediate families. Transport ships loaded until they could hold no more, then launched toward the outer system where they might escape to faster-than-light speed. Approximately 60,000 people made it off the planet. The rest remained behind, hoping the Dominion was bluffing, that no civilized species would actually murder nearly 2 million unarmed civilians. They were wrong. The bombardment began exactly 12 hours after the initial warning. The Dominion fleet, 47 warships representing the combined military might of 7 species, opened fire on population centers with calculated precision. Plasma weapons designed to superheat atmospheric molecules created firestorms that consumed everything in their path. Kinetic bombardment dropped tungsten rods from orbit, releasing energy equivalent to nuclear weapons without the radiation. New Dawn, the capital city that had taken 18 years to build, ceased to exist in 17 minutes. The university where students had been studying xenobiology that morning became a crater half a kilometer wide. The children's hospital, the art galleries, the homes where families had lived and loved, all vaporized or crushed under falling debris. Rivera activated the emergency shelter system as the first strikes hit. Across the planet, bunkers designed to protect colonists from natural disasters sealed their doors. These shelters could hold perhaps 300,000 people if packed beyond capacity. The rest of the population had nowhere to go. They died in their homes, in the streets, at their workplaces, looking up at skies that had suddenly turned against them. Dr. Michael Chen, a geneticist specializing in crop adaptation, managed to reach Shelter 7 with his research team. 23 people crowded into a space designed for 15. They felt the bombardment through meters of reinforced concrete, each impact sending vibrations through the floor that felt like the planet itself was dying. The attacks continued for 18 hours, systematic, thorough, merciless. When the Dominion fleet finally ceased fire, Meridian's Rest was silent. No communications, no signs of life on the surface. The paradise humanity had built was a smoking graveyard. 3 weeks later, the scout ship Pathfinder arrived on routine supply run. Captain Sarah Okonkwo had been making this journey every 6 months for the past decade, bringing luxury items and news from Earth. She expected the usual warm welcome, the eager crowds at the spaceport, the children asking about life on other worlds. Instead, her sensors showed devastation on a scale she had never imagined. Every city was destroyed. Atmospheric readings showed toxic levels of particulates and chemical residue. Surface temperature had risen 15 degrees from the heat absorbed by the bombardment. Okonkwo sent the distress signal immediately, then took her ship down to search for survivors. They found Shelter 7 on the third day. The structure was intact but failing. Life support had been running on emergency power for over 2 weeks. The air was thin and foul. Dr. Chen was among the survivors they pulled out. 23 people had entered the shelter. 19 remained alive, thin and weak but breathing. Chen's first question after being brought aboard the Pathfinder was simple. How many others did you find? Okonkwo had to tell him. Out of 1.8 million colonists, her crew had located 14 shelters with survivors. Total count was just under 43,000 people. Everyone else was dead. The news reached Earth 4 days later through quantum relay. The response was unlike anything in human history. Every previous disaster had sparked debate, political maneuvering, discussions about appropriate responses. The destruction of Meridian's Rest created something different. Unity, the global assembly, representing every nation and major faction on Earth and throughout human space, convened within hours. There were no arguments about jurisdiction or proper procedure. No debates about cost or political ramifications. The vote was unanimous and simple. Activate Project Horizon. Few people knew about Project Horizon. It had begun a century ago as a response to the first contact with alien species. While humanity's public face showed peaceful exploration and diplomatic outreach, a small group of strategic thinkers asked uncomfortable questions. What if we encountered hostile species? What if our lack of military strength was seen as weakness? What if someone decided humanity was an acceptable target? Project Horizon was the answer. A network of automated industrial facilities hidden in systems humanity claimed, but never advertised. Entire moons and asteroids converted into factories capable of producing warships at scales that would terrify anyone who discovered them. The facilities had been maintained in standby mode for decades, producing nothing, waiting for activation codes that everyone hoped would never be needed. Admiral Elena Vasquez received those codes at her home on Mars. She was 73 years old, a veteran of humanity's early expansion, who had spent the last 20 years in comfortable retirement. The message was simple. Report to Fleet Command immediately. Bring nothing. This is not a drill. When she arrived at the underground command center, they showed her the recordings from Meridian's Rest. They showed her the numbers. They asked her a single question. Can you command a fleet large enough to ensure this never happens again? Vasquez looked at the images of burning cities and thought about her granddaughter, who lived on a colony world not unlike Meridian's Rest. She thought about every human settlement scattered across the stars. Vulnerable and trusting in the goodness of civilized species, she accepted command. The first warships began construction within 24 hours. On Titan, factories that had been silent for decades roared to life. In the Kuiper Belt, Automated mining drones that had been extracting resources at minimal rates suddenly increased operations by factors of thousands. Beyond Neptune, in systems most humans had never heard of, shipyards assembled vessels designed for a single purpose. The design was called the Prometheus class. Each ship measured 4 kilometers from bow to stern, armored with composite materials that could absorb tremendous punishment. The weapon systems incorporated every advancement humanity had made in the century since Project Horizon began. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to relativistic speeds, directed energy weapons powered by fusion cores, missile systems carrying warheads that could crack moons. But the most impressive aspect was not the ships themselves. It was the production rate. Traditional shipbuilding methods might produce 1 capital ship every few months. The Horizon facilities could complete a Prometheus-class dreadnought every 6 hours. Dr. Chen stood in the observation lounge of the hospital ship that had taken him from Meridian's Rest to Mars. He watched through the viewport as new warships rose from Titan's surface in steady streams, dozens per day becoming hundreds per week. He understood what he was seeing. Humanity's reply to genocide. A nurse approached him carefully. "Dr. Chen, Admiral Vasquez would like to speak with you." The Admiral met him in a private conference room. She was shorter than he expected, her hair more gray than black, but her eyes held an intensity that made him straighten instinctively. "Dr. Chen," Vasquez said without preamble, "you survived Meridian's Rest. You saw what they did. I need to know something. When we face the Dominion, and we will face them, what does justice look like to you? Revenge or accountability?" Chen was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his colleagues who had died in the bombardment. He thought about the children he had taught at the colony school. He thought about the civilization that had been erased. "Justice means they answer for what they did," he finally said. "It means trials and consequences and the galaxy knowing what happened. But it does not mean becoming like them. We are better than that. We have to be." Vasquez nodded slowly. "Good. Because I am about to take 500,000 warships to the Dominion's doorstep. I need to remember why we are going. Not to conquer, but to ensure this never happens again." The fleet grew through the spring and summer. By autumn, humanity had assembled the largest military force in known galactic history. 500,000 warships crewed by volunteers who had seen the footage from Meridian's Rest and decided that peaceful humanity needed protectors. The Dominion had no idea what was coming. Their intelligence services detected increased industrial activity in human space, but attributed it to normal expansion. They had already moved on from Meridian's Rest, filed their reports about removing unauthorized colonists, and considered the matter closed. They were about to learn that humanity remembered, and when humans remembered their dead, the galaxy itself would tremble. The March of Thunder, the fleet assembled in the darkness beyond Neptune's orbit. 500,000 warships arranged in formations so vast that no single human eye could comprehend the scale. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Meridian's Memory, and watched the tactical displays struggle to represent every ship under her command. Each vessel represented countless hours of automated production, refined materials extracted from asteroids and moons, and the focused determination of a species that had finally reached its breaking point. The Prometheus-class dreadnoughts formed the core of the fleet, but they were supported by thousands of smaller vessels. Destroyers for rapid response, frigates equipped with electronic warfare systems, supply ships carrying enough ammunition and fuel to sustain a war that could last years. But Vasquez did not plan for a long war. She planned for a demonstration that would reshape galactic politics forever. The departure was deliberately public. Humanity made no attempt to hide the fleet's movement. Every sensor in human space tracked their progress as 500,000 ships engaged their faster-than-light drives in perfect synchronization. The energy signature was visible across a dozen star systems, a blazing declaration that could not be ignored or dismissed. Vasquez had planned the route carefully. Rather than jumping directly to Dominion space, the fleet would pass through neutral territories, systems controlled by species not aligned with any major power. She wanted witnesses. She wanted the galaxy to see what was coming and understand its implications. The first system they entered was Kalara, home to a species of peaceful traders known as the Vishari. The Vishari had maintained neutrality for 3 centuries, offering their system as a waypoint for various species' merchant fleets. They had never seen a military formation larger than a few dozen ships. When 500,000 human warships materialized at the edge of their system, every Vishari vessel immediately retreated to their homeworld. The planetary government sent a panicked transmission asking about humanity's intentions. Vasquez responded personally, her message broadcast on all frequencies. People of Kalara, we mean you no harm. We are passing through your territory with your permission. We will remain for 12 hours to allow our drives to recharge, then continue our journey. We apologize for the intrusion and offer compensation for any disruption to your commercial operations. The Vishari government, terrified but pragmatic, granted permission. What choice did they have? But Vasquez made good on her promise. Human supply ships paid triple rate for fuel and provisions. Crew members who took shore leave were respectful and courteous. When the fleet departed exactly 12 hours later, the Vishari were left with full bank accounts and stories that would spread across the galaxy. The psychological warfare was deliberate. Every system they passed through saw the same pattern. Overwhelming force displayed openly, but restrained and respectful. Humanity was showing that they could wage war without becoming monsters in the process. By the third system, independent news networks were following the fleet's progress. Reporters from dozens of species broadcast updates as the human armada made its steady march toward Dominion space. The images were stunning and terrifying. Formations of warships that stretched beyond the camera's ability to capture. Vessels so numerous that they created artificial constellations visible from planetary surfaces. The Dominion Council finally grasped the magnitude of what was approaching. High Chancellor Vex convened emergency sessions, but the bureaucratic machinery that had functioned smoothly for centuries suddenly seized up in panic. The military commanders insisted the humans were bluffing, that holographic projections and propaganda were creating an illusion of strength. The intelligence services presented data that contradicted this theory but were ignored. Meanwhile, fissures appeared in the Dominion coalition. The Corthians, Vex's own species, had ordered the destruction of Meridian's Rest and expected the other 6 species to support whatever consequences followed. But the other member species began reconsidering their alliance. The Prithani, an amphibious race known for their commercial acumen, withdrew their ships from the Joint Defense Fleet. Their representative issued a statement that was clinical in its assessment. The Prithani Conclave recognizes that participation in the defense of Dominion territorial claims against human retaliation represents an unacceptable risk to Prithani interests. We hereby suspend our military commitments pending resolution of the current crisis. 2 other species followed within days. The grand coalition of 7 species that had destroyed Meridian's Rest was fragmenting before the human fleet even arrived. Vasquez monitored these developments with satisfaction. She had studied history extensively during her military career, particularly the great wars of Earth's past. One lesson appeared repeatedly. Overwhelming force deployed with clear purpose could end conflicts before they truly began. The goal was not to fight the biggest battle, but to make the enemy realize that fighting was futile. Dr. Michael Chen had been assigned to the Meridian's memory as a civilian advisor. Vasquez wanted survivors of the colony to be present, to remind her command staff why they were doing this. Chen spent his days in the ship's observation deck, watching other vessels in the formation, trying to process the magnitude of humanity's response. A young ensign named Marcus Webb approached him one afternoon. The ensign was barely 25, had joined the newly expanded fleet immediately after seeing footage from Meridian's Rest. He looked at Chen with something between respect and uncertainty. Dr. Chen, Webb began hesitantly, can I ask you something? When we reach the Dominion, when the fighting starts, how do we avoid becoming like them? How do we get justice without becoming executioners? Chen appreciated the question. It was one he had been wrestling with himself. We remember that every ship we face has people inside. Not humans, but people nonetheless. They are following orders, believing in their leaders, trying to do what they think is right. Our quarrel is not with individual soldiers. It is with the leadership that ordered genocide and the system that allowed it to happen. The ensign nodded slowly, processing this. So we fight the system, not the people. Exactly. We show them that humanity can be fierce without being cruel, that we can demand justice without becoming murderers ourselves. The fleet continued its march, system after system, jump after jump, drawing ever closer to the Dominion's core territories. With each passage, the psychological pressure increased. Dominion ships began abandoning border stations, retreating toward their homeworlds. Civilian vessels fled to neutral space. The economic disruption was massive as trade routes shut down and commerce ground to a halt. Vasquez sent one message to the Dominion Council when the fleet was 3 days from their borders. It was not a negotiation or a threat, simply a statement of fact. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the United Human Fleet. We are coming to seek accountability for the massacre at Meridian's Rest. You have 72 hours to prepare your surrender terms. We will accept nothing less than the following. 1. All individuals involved in ordering or executing the attack will be surrendered for trial. 2. The Dominion will dismantle its offensive military capabilities and maintain only defensive forces. 3. Memorials to the victims of Meridian's Rest will be established on every Dominion world. These terms are not negotiable. Prepare accordingly. The Dominion's response was defiant but hollow. High Chancellor Vex declared that the Dominion would defend its sovereign territory against unprovoked aggression. The remaining military forces would fight to protect their home worlds. Humanity would regret threatening the established galactic order, but behind the bravado, panic spread through Dominion space. 4 of the original 7 species had now withdrawn from the coalition. Only the Corthians and 2 smaller species remained committed to defense. Their combined fleet numbered approximately 75,000 ships, formidable by any previous standard but hopelessly outnumbered. The human fleet crossed into Dominion territory on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. There was no ceremony, no dramatic declaration. The warships simply continued their steady advance. Now entering space, the Dominion claimed as inviolable. The Dominion defense fleet waited at the Korthos system, arranged in protective formation around the Korthian homeworld. 75,000 ships facing an approaching force nearly 7 times larger. Their commanders knew the mathematics but hoped that defensive advantages and superior positioning might balance the scales. Admiral Vasquez had no intention of giving them any advantage. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, already arranged for battle. The coordination was flawless, each ship knowing its position and role through quantum-linked communication systems that allowed near-instantaneous tactical updates. She opened a final communication channel to the Dominion forces. This is Admiral Vasquez to all Dominion military personnel. You are defending leadership that ordered the murder of 1.8 million civilians. You can choose to die for their war crimes, or you can stand down and live to rebuild your societies. We offer you this one opportunity to surrender with honor. You have 30 minutes to decide. The response came from Fleet Commander Thax, a Korthian officer whose scales showed the deep blue of advanced age. His voice carried the resignation of someone who understood military mathematics. Admiral Vasquez, we are soldiers bound by duty. We cannot abandon our posts, but many of us question the wisdom of our leaders. If we stand down, what guarantee do we have of fair treatment? Vasquez answered immediately. You have my word as a human officer. Any personnel who surrender will be treated according to established protocols for prisoners of war. You will be housed safely, fed adequately, and returned to your homeworlds once this conflict is resolved. We are not seeking revenge. We are seeking justice. Across the Dominion fleet, commanders made their choices. Some ships powered down weapons and broadcast surrender signals. Others maintained combat readiness but held fire, waiting to see what would happen. A minority, approximately 15,000 vessels commanded by officers completely loyal to the existing leadership, prepared to fight. The battle was brief and utterly one-sided. The human fleet did not charge forward in traditional formations. Instead, they demonstrated tactical capabilities that shocked even experienced military observers. Ships blinked in and out of faster-than-light speed in microjumps, appearing behind enemy formations before defensive systems could react. Directed energy weapons struck with precision that disabled ships without destroying them. Railgun volleys were calculated to shatter weapon systems while leaving crew compartments intact. The human doctrine was clear. Eliminate the enemy's ability to fight while preserving their ability to survive. Every targeting solution was designed to disable rather than kill. Within 2 hours, the entire Dominion defense fleet was neutralized. 15,000 ships that had chosen to fight were now drifting hulks, their weapons destroyed, their engines disabled, but their life support intact. 60,000 ships that had surrendered were escorted to designated areas where human forces could monitor them. The casualty count was remarkably low. The Dominion forces suffered approximately 12,000 dead, mostly from ships whose reactors had critical failures during the engagement. It was a tragedy, but nothing compared to what might have happened in a conventional battle of this scale. Admiral Vasquez established orbit around Korthos and broadcast her message to the planet below. People of the Dominion, the military phase of this action is complete. Your defense fleet has been defeated with minimal loss of life because we chose to fight with precision rather than rage. Now comes the difficult part. Justice. She requested that High Chancellor Vex and all other officials involved in ordering the Meridian's Rest attack surrender themselves for trial. She gave them 24 hours to comply. The alternative, she made clear, was that human Marines would land and extract them by force. The Korthian population, watching from their homeworld as their supposedly invincible military was dismantled in hours, erupted in civil discord. Protests filled the streets of every major city. Citizens who had supported their government's expansionist policies now demanded accountability. The message was clear: surrender the war criminals and end this nightmare. Dr. Chen watched from the Meridian's memory as the situation unfolded. He felt no satisfaction in the Dominion's defeat, only a hollow awareness that justice, no matter how carefully pursued, still carried terrible costs. On the third day after the battle, High Chancellor Vex and 47 other Dominion officials walked out of the planetary government complex under human escort. They would be transported to a neutral station where representatives from dozens of species would conduct trials according to established galactic law. Vasquez sent her final message to Earth and all human colonies. The fleet will remain in Dominion space for 6 months to ensure compliance with the terms of justice. After that, we return home. Our purpose was not conquest but accountability. We have achieved that purpose. The galaxy watched and learned. Humanity had demonstrated that they possessed the industrial capacity to build fleets that could overwhelm any existing power. More importantly, they had shown they could wield that power with restraint. They did not glass planets or enslave populations. They sought justice through established legal systems rather than revenge through destruction. In the years that followed, no species would mistake human peace for human weakness. The memory of 500,000 warships making their deliberate march across the galaxy became a cautionary tale. Humanity would tolerate trade disputes, diplomatic friction, even minor incidents. But genocide, the casual murder of civilians, would be answered with overwhelming force, tempered by unshakable principle. Meridian's Rest remained a dead world, its cities never rebuilt. Instead, humanity established it as a memorial. Every human child would visit during their education, would walk among the ruins and learn what happened when civilization forgot that mercy and strength were not opposites. Admiral Vasquez retired for a second time, her duty fulfilled. Dr. Chen returned to his work, developing crops that would feed the next generation of colonies. The fleet was gradually decommissioned, most ships returning to the automated facilities to await another crisis that would hopefully never come. But humanity never forgot. They had shown the galaxy their strength. Now they would spend generations proving that their greatest strength was choosing when not to use it. The stars continued turning, and among them, humanity built their civilization on principles they had defended with the largest fleet ever assembled. Peace was the goal, but everyone now understood that humanity possessed the means and will to protect that peace. The message was clear across 1,000 worlds: leave humanity's colonies alone. Respect their citizens. Remember Meridian's Rest, and remember that justice, when humanity sought it, arrived with 500,000 witnesses made of steel and fire.